The soft hum of the evening filled the air as Jabir adjusted his tie for the third time, staring at the reflection of himself in the polished glass of the restaurant window. He could see her coming from across the street, her silhouette outlined by the warm glow of the street lamps. Every step she took toward him made his heart stumble in a rhythm he barely controlled. Tonight, he tells himself, tonight will be perfect. He had planned this moment for weeks, perhaps months. Every detail had been meticulously considered: the candlelit table near the window, a tiny string quartet tucked into the corner, the soft petals scattered across the marble floor. Even the ring, a delicate gold band with a solitaire diamond that caught the light like a fragment of a star, rested safely in his pocket, waiting to become a part of their story. He had practiced the words countless times, letting them roll off his tongue in the privacy of his apartment, imagining her eyes lighting up, imagining the soft gasp of surprise. But as she approached, the rehearsed perfection began to tremble at the edges. There was a subtle shift in her smile tonight, a small hesitation he could not quite name, and it sent a flutter of unease through him. Jabir shook the feeling off, telling himself it was nothing, just nerves, just the thrill of anticipation. His fingers brushed the pocket of his jacket, feeling the reassuring weight of the ring, and he allowed himself a deep breath. Everything is perfect. It has to be. Jabir. Her voice broke through the hum of the evening, warm and melodic. She reached him, and he noticed, with a pang, the way her eyes seemed slightly distant, scanning the room as if searching for something else. "Hey," he said, forcing a smile that he hoped conveyed confidence rather than the storm of doubt twisting inside him. He took her hand, feeling its familiar warmth, a comfort that usually settled his racing thoughts. But tonight, that comfort seemed tinged with fragility. They walked to the table in silence, their steps synchronized, yet heavy with unspoken anticipation. Jabir could feel his pulse in his throat as the waiter pulled out her chair. The candles flickered, casting soft shadows across her face, and he noticed the way her hair fell delicately over her shoulder, the slight curve of her lips, the quiet depth in her eyes. Every detail seemed to magnify the stakes, reminding him that love, real love, was both fragile and unpredictable. "I thought tonight would be nice," she said softly, finally breaking the silence. Her gaze held his, curious and questioning, as if sensing the hidden urgency in his heart. "It's special," he replied, choosing each word like stepping stones across a turbulent river. "I wanted tonight to be perfect," she smiled faintly, and in that moment, the small doubt that had flickered in his chest grew heavier. Was perfection even possible? Or was he chasing an illusion, a fantasy that would dissolve the instant it met reality? He shook his head, letting the thought pass. He could not let uncertainty overshadow this moment. Dinner arrived, a gentle symphony of flavors, laughter from neighboring tables rising and falling like a tide around them. He laughed when she laughed, though every note carried the tension of a heart on edge. And then, finally, the moment he had been rehearsing in solitude arrived. The waiter discreetly slid the dessert plate toward them, and with a casual gesture, Jabir reached into his pocket. Her eyes widened just slightly as he knelt, the words rehearsed for countless nights, now trembling on his lips. "I know we've had our ups and downs, and life hasn't always been simple, but every moment with you has been worth it. You make my world brighter, fuller, more alive. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, if you'll let me." Time seemed to stretch as he pulled the ring from his pocket, holding it between his fingers like the most fragile treasure on earth. Her hand moved toward him almost instinctively, and he slid the ring onto her finger. The diamond caught the light, scattering tiny fragments across her palm and onto the tablecloth. Each spark like a heartbeat he could feel deep in his chest. For a moment, there was silence, a pause so weighty it seemed to hold the universe within it. She looked down at the ring, then up at him, her eyes wide, and he felt the adrenaline spike, the rush of triumph and relief that washed over him like sunlight after a storm. She began, but her voice faltered. Her lips parted, then closed again, and a shadow crossed her face, fleeting but unmistakable. Jabir's heart lurched. Something in that brief hesitation planted a seed of uncertainty, a question he couldn't quite answer. "Is everything okay?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, though the fear beneath it gnawed at him. She forced a smile, the kind that tries to mask a storm, and nodded. Yes, it's perfect," she said softly. But the tone, the slight hesitation in the rise of her voice, lingered in the air like an echo. Jabir's mind raced, recalling every small glance, every fleeting distraction over the past weeks. The subtle moments that now seemed like silent warnings whispered at the edges of his awareness. And yet he held on to the vision he had carried for so long, the perfect proposal, the promise of love that would outlast every fear. He swallowed the doubt, letting it dissolve into the golden candlelight around them. They embraced, a long, tender hug that spoke of love and hope, of futures imagined and promises silently made. He could feel her heart beating against his chest, steady yet mysterious, and for a moment the world seemed to pause around them, holding its breath in the quiet intimacy of that embrace. As they pulled back, she brushed a strand of hair from her face, her eyes glistening in the soft light. "Thank you," she whispered, a warmth in her voice that felt both sincere and distant, and it sent a ripple of unease through him, subtle but undeniable. Jabir forced a smile, nodding, though a small, inexplicable fear tugged at his chest. Something unspoken lingered between them, a shadow beneath the glow of candlelight. He couldn't name it yet, but he would feel it tonight, and perhaps for many nights to come. The music swelled, the string quartet playing a tender, lilting melody as he reached for her hand again, fingers entwining. He wanted to trust this moment, to believe in the perfection he had orchestrated. Yet, deep down, he knew that love was never a flawless script. It was messy, unpredictable, and beautiful in ways no rehearsal could capture. And as they sat together, eyes locked, hearts racing, the world outside their little island of candlelight faded, leaving only the quiet tension of unspoken possibilities. He had given her the ring, the symbol of his love and devotion, but the story was only beginning. The perfect proposal had been delivered, yet perfection, he realized, might be far more fragile than he had ever imagined. He looked at her one last time before the waiter returned with the check, and in that fleeting gaze, he saw a flicker of question, a hesitation, a glimmer of uncertainty that made his chest tighten. The journey they were about to embark on felt suddenly larger, deeper, and far more unpredictable than he could have ever anticipated. And in that heartbeat of silence, Jabir knew that the true story of love, of heartbreak, and of hope was only just beginning. The morning sunlight filters through the sheer curtains, spilling across the bedroom in soft golden streaks. Jabir wakes to the familiar rhythm of their life together, the quiet hum of the city outside, the faint scent of her shampoo lingering in the air. She is beside him, still half asleep, her hair splayed across the pillow like a halo, and for a moment, everything feels perfect. Yet beneath that perfection, a subtle unease tugs at the edges of his chest. "Good morning," he whispers, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes flutter open, and she smiles, though it doesn't quite reach them. "Good morning," she murmurs, voice soft, almost hesitant. Jabir notes the fleeting shadow in her gaze, a pause that shouldn't be there, and he shakes it off. He tells himself she's just tired, that nerves from the previous night's proposal still linger. But the thought refuses to settle. He can feel it like a thread unraveling in the back of his mind, a quiet question. Is everything truly as it seems? They move through the morning routine in a fragile rhythm, their actions automatic, almost rehearsed. Coffee is poured, toast is buttered, the mundane choreography of life folding neatly around them. Yet every small movement seems loaded with weight. She laughs at a joke he makes, but the sound is hollow, reverberating through the kitchen without warmth. He notices the way her gaze flickers toward her phone every few minutes, a subtle preoccupation that sets his nerves on edge. Is something wrong? He asks, careful to keep his voice light, but the tension in it betrays him. She glances at him quickly, forcing a smile. No, just thinking about work, I guess. Nothing important. Jabir nods, though the unease in his chest deepens. Work, yes, but work rarely pulls attention with such insistence. He swallows hard, trying to tell himself that this is normal, that he is being paranoid. And yet, a small seed of doubt has been planted. The day stretches ahead with quiet unease. Every gesture feels loaded. The way she reaches for his hand, but lets it linger just briefly. The way she hesitates before speaking, as if weighing words she doesn't intend to say. They go for a walk in the park, the early spring air crisp and fragrant with blooms. But even here, under the open sky, something feels askew. You've been quiet, Jabir says, breaking a silence that has been growing like a slow crack in glass. I'm fine, she replies, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Her smile is polite, careful, but it doesn't touch her eyes. Really, he wants to believe her. He wants to trust the bond they have nurtured for months. The love he's so certain is strong and unshakable. And yet, the small signs are insistent, pulling at him. The distracted glances, the hesitation in her words, the subtle tension in her posture. Something is there, just beneath the surface, and he cannot name it. By evening, they find themselves at their favorite cafe, a quiet corner tucked away from the rush of the city. Jabir tries to focus on the present, the warmth of her hand in his, a soft murmur of the piano playing in the background. But the tension refuses to dissipate. He notices it then, a brief flicker of movement in her lap, a quick tilt of her wrist, and the glow of the phone screen. She's texting. In that instant, the familiar comfort of their life together is pierced by a sharp, unfamiliar pang. The intimacy of their celebration, the quiet victory of last night's proposal feels tainted, as though he has walked into a room and discovered a secret already whispered without him. Who are you texting? His voice is steady, but there's an edge of something harsher, sharper, hiding beneath the calm. Her eyes widen slightly as she looks down at the screen, as if caught in a lie, then back at him. It's just a message from a friend, she says quickly, tone light but unconvincing. Jabir wants to believe her, to swallow the suspicion curling in his chest, but the seeds of doubt have grown roots. He feels a hollowing inside him, the fragile certainty of yesterday slipping into the shadows. His fingers tighten around his coffee cup, the porcelain warm but insufficient to comfort the sudden chill of his heart. Do you always text during special moments? He asks quietly, not accusing, but seeking truth. Her lips press together, and for a fraction of a second, he catches a flicker of unease, almost shame, before she nods. A small, awkward acknowledgement. I didn't mean anything by it. She trails off, and the unfinished sentence hangs between them like smoke. The cafe's soft lighting feels almost too bright, illuminating the tension in ways that are impossible to ignore. He watches her, trying to reconcile the woman he knows, the warmth he felt in her hand, the laughter they've shared, with this small betrayal of attention. His mind races with questions he cannot voice, fears he cannot shake. They leave the cafe in silence, walking along the cobblestone streets under the glow of the street lamps. The city is alive with life around them, laughter, music, passing footsteps, but they are in their own world, a bubble of quiet tension and unspoken words. He wants to reach for her hand, to reassure himself, but hesitates, the memory of the phone screen burning in his mind. Back at the apartment, the routine of everyday life unfolds around them, yet the intimacy is fractured. Jabir makes an effort to smile, to speak lightly, to act as if everything is normal, but every glance toward her phone, every brief distraction, feels like a small chisel, carving at the trust he has built. Finally, as the night draws to a close, they sit together on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below like scattered stars. She leans against him, her shoulder brushing his, and he wants to let go of the day's unease, to feel the warmth of connection and love. Yet the tension remains, a quiet tremor beneath the surface. Do you ever feel like we're not completely aligned? He asks softly, voice almost a whisper. She stiffens slightly, and he can feel the distance in her shift, a subtle hesitation. I don't know, she admits finally, voice low. Maybe sometimes. He swallows, feeling the truth of it settle between them. Not a disaster, not yet, but a subtle crack in the mirror of their happiness. Something is shifting, and the ease of yesterday feels more fragile than he wants to acknowledge. As they sit together, the night stretching around them, Jabir's thoughts drift to the ring still snug on her finger, a symbol of love, hope, and commitment, and yet now tinged with doubt. He wonders how small signs, these fleeting moments, can carry so much weight, how a distracted glance or a hollow laugh can hint at secrets yet to be revealed. He takes a deep breath, letting the cool air fill his lungs, and watches her from the corner of his eye. Her head rests lightly against his shoulder, her hair brushing his cheek, and despite everything, a part of him wants to believe in the warmth of her presence. But the phone screen flickers again, just out of sight, and with it, a quiet, insistent unease. He realizes that this is only the beginning, that love, even in its most tender form, comes with questions that cannot always be answered, with tensions that must be navigated with care and courage. Tonight, he cannot shake the feeling that the silence signals, the signs in her eyes, in her hands, in the flickers of distraction, are whispering something he is not yet ready to hear, something that will test him, challenge him, and change everything he thought he knew about their love. And in that quiet, suspended moment on the balcony, with the city lights shimmering like distant constellations, Jabir knows that the journey ahead is not as simple as the perfect proposal. Something has shifted, and the silence between them carries the weight of unspoken truths, waiting to be discovered. The sunlight falls through the apartment window in soft streams, but the warmth it brings does little to ease the cold tension that has begun to settle between them. Jabir sits at the kitchen table, staring at his untouched cup of coffee, the steam curling upward like smoke from a smoldering fire, beautiful yet fragile, fleeting and impossible to grasp. Across from him, she flips through her phone with casual detachment, her brows slightly furrowed, lips pressed into a line that used to curve naturally into a smile. I don't understand why you keep scrolling, Jabir says finally, trying to keep his voice calm, but it carries a weight that even he cannot fully mask. She glances up, eyes meeting his for a moment before slipping away again. It's nothing, she says quickly, almost too quickly. Just messages from work. That's all. Jabir's hand clenches slightly around the handle of his coffee mug. Work again? During breakfast? During the mornings we're supposed to be us? His voice rises, not with anger, but with the quiet frustration of someone trying desperately to make sense of small, recurring cracks. She sighs, a faint, exasperated sound, and Jabir feels it in his chest as a tiny fracture widening the space between them. Jabir, it's not a big deal. Can we not start the day with an argument? But it is a big deal. The tension, like a slow leak, has been growing under the surface, and each small dismissal only pours water into it. Jabir closes his eyes briefly, taking a deep breath, trying to collect himself. Love, he tells himself, is supposed to withstand little cracks. But the cracks, no matter how small, are starting to form patterns, intricate and impossible to ignore. Later, As they move through the day, the apartment becomes a stage for silent skirmishes. The way she reaches for something on the counter, her movements abrupt, impatient, feels like a rebuke. The way he walks past her to grab a book from the shelf is met with a subtle, almost imperceptible sigh. Words are unnecessary. The friction is already written in gestures, in glances, in the tiny unspoken complaints that grow heavier with each passing hour. They decide to step out for a walk. The city streets alive with the chatter of life, the hum of cars, the aroma of street food drifting in the evening air. Normally, walking together would bring them laughter, gentle teasing, shared stories. But tonight, every conversation is tentative, cautious, filled with pauses that feel like walls built between them. "Why are you so quiet?" she asks finally, the question hanging in the air with more accusation than curiosity. "I'm not quiet," Jabir responds softly, though each word feels like it must carry more weight than it should. "I'm just noticing things that don't feel right." She stops, turning to face him, her hands on her hips, the city lights casting shadows across her face that accentuate the tension in her eyes. "Things like what?" Jabir hesitates, trying to choose his words carefully. "Like the way you laugh sometimes, and it doesn't sound real. Like you're somewhere else, even when we're together. Or the way your phone lights up, and suddenly, I'm not. Enough to hold your attention." Her eyes flash, a mix of guilt and irritation, and she looks away. "It's not like that," she says, voice sharp now, defensive. "I can be distracted. I have things on my mind. Doesn't mean you're not enough. But it feels like it," he says quietly, the words almost breaking as they tumble out. "And I don't know what to do with that feeling. I feel like I'm losing you in little pieces every day, and I don't even know if you notice." She turns back toward him, her expression softening for a brief moment before the tension returns. "Jabir, we're fine, really. You're imagining things." But Jabir knows he is not imagining. He sees the subtle hesitations, the fleeting glances, the way her laughter echoes in his ears hollowly. He knows something has shifted, something that cannot be dismissed with words or excuses. They continue walking, side by side, but separated by an invisible chasm. The park they reach, usually a place of solace and shared memories, feels different tonight. The benches, the fountains, even the trees, everything is filtered through the lens of suspicion and fragile uncertainty. A small argument erupts over something trivial, a misplaced water bottle, a comment about directions, an unintended bump as they pass another couple. Yet the triviality belies the weight of the emotions beneath. Words that would normally pass unnoticed now strike with the sharpness of hidden grievances. "Why do you always have to make a scene over nothing?" She snaps, frustration spilling over. "Nothing?" he asks, voice low but firm. "It's never nothing, not anymore. Every little thing feels weighted, like it's pointing to something bigger. Can't you see that?" Her hands tremble slightly, a subtle sign of her own frustration and fear, and she turns away, staring at the ground. "Maybe I'm not ready for this conversation," she says, voice almost breaking. "Maybe you're looking for cracks where there are none." "Cracks are real," he says softly, voice strained with emotion. "And I don't want to ignore them. Not anymore. I can't pretend everything is perfect when it's not." Silence falls between them, heavier than any argument. The world around them continues its casual rhythm, but they are caught in a suspended moment, the weight of unsaid truths pressing down from all sides. Eventually, they return to the apartment, each step echoing in the quiet hallway. The tension follows them inside, filling the rooms with a quiet unease that neither knows how to address. They sit together on the couch, close in proximity, but distant in emotion, the air thick with the remnants of anger and unspoken fear. Jabir watches her, noting the way her fingers fidget with the hem of her shirt, the way her eyes avoid his gaze, and he feels a pang of sorrow. The woman he loves, the fiancée he thought he knew completely, now feels like a stranger in subtle ways he cannot yet articulate. "I don't want to fight," she says finally, breaking the silence, voice soft but tense. "I don't either," he whispers, but the words feel empty even to him. "But maybe we need to face it before it grows into something we can't fix." She nods, but neither moves closer, and the space between them feels insurmountable. The evening stretches on, filled with the quiet sounds of life-distant traffic, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock, but inside, they are suspended in a fragile bubble of tension, the first real fracture in the mirror of their relationship now undeniable. Jabir leans back, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how quickly familiarity can twist into uncertainty, how love that once felt effortless can now feel fragile, teetering on the edge of a silent abyss. He wonders if these small cracks are warnings, or just the natural ebb and flow of intimacy. Either way, he cannot ignore them. The night deepens, the city lights outside their window flickering like distant stars, indifferent to the quiet storm inside. Jabir and she sit together, hearts pounding, breaths shallow, each aware of the fragility that now hangs between them. They are connected, yet distant, close, yet separated by the silent echoes of doubt. And in the quiet, Jabir realizes that love, no matter how deeply felt, is not immune to fracture. Even the strongest bonds can splinter when shadows creep into the corners of trust, when small gestures begin to speak louder than words. Tonight, the cracks have appeared. How they will heal, or if they will, remains uncertain. The evening sunlight slants across the apartment, painting the walls in streaks of gold and amber. Jabir sits on the edge of the bed, staring at the engagement ring he had carefully chosen, the ring that symbolized his devotion, his hope, his vision of a shared future. It glints in the fading light, beautiful, untouchable, yet heavy with unspoken significance. She enters the room, humming softly, the familiar rhythm that usually eases his heart, now twisting it with unease. Her hand brushes against the ring, sliding it onto her finger. For a moment, he feels a surge of warmth, relief, pride, but then his eyes catch the glow of her phone. The subtle tilt, the quick movement of her thumb scrolling, the faint light flickering across her face, it all hits him like a splash of cold water. His chest tightens. Time slows. Every heartbeat reverberates like a drum in his ears. That ring his gift, his promises on her finger. But her attention is elsewhere, consumed by another world that does not include him. "Who are you texting?" he asks, voice low, trembling with something between anger and disbelief. She freezes, eyes widening as if caught in a trap she didn't anticipate. It's just," she hesitates, searching for words that fail to satisfy. "Just what?" Jabir's voice rises slightly, carrying a sharp edge he didn't intend. "Just someone who isn't me." Her lips part, then close again, a futile attempt to shape an explanation. "Jabir, it's nothing serious, I promise." His throat tightens. "Nothing serious? You're wearing the ring I bought, the one I chose with my own hands, while your attention is somewhere else. Don't tell me it's nothing serious." The room falls silent, filled with the weight of unspoken accusations. She looks down, fingers fidgeting with the edge of the blanket, the engagement ring catching the light with a cruel sparkle. Jabir can't look away from it. It is beautiful, but in this moment it feels like a symbol of betrayal. Every glint of diamond becomes a tiny reflection of doubt, of a fracture he had been sensing, but refusing to name. I didn't mean to hurt you," she says finally, voice soft, fragile, almost pleading. "I didn't," but Jabir cannot hear her. His mind races with every small sign he has ignored, the distracted glances, the hollow laughter, the fleeting attention to her phone during moments that should have belonged to them. He sees them now with brutal clarity, each one a stitch unraveling from the fabric of their trust. "I trusted you," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, but every word carries the weight of devastation. "I trusted you, and this feels like a lie." She looks at him then, really looks at him, and for a moment, vulnerability flickers across her features. "It's not a lie," she says, voice shaking slightly. I just didn't think it would hurt you this much." Jabir's chest tightens again. "It hurts more than you can imagine. This ring, this moment, it was supposed to be ours. And yet, here you are, somewhere else, somewhere I'm not allowed to go." Tears threaten to spill, but he forces them back, focusing instead on the small details. The way her fingers curl around the phone, the faint crease in her brow, the way the light catches her eyes and reflects a truth he is not ready to accept. She reaches toward him, but he recoils slightly, the gesture unfamiliar, uncomfortable. "Jabir, please," she whispers. "You're overreacting." "I? Overreacting?" He interrupts, voice sharp now, trembling with anger and heartbreak. "You're texting him while wearing this ring. How am I overreacting?" The room seems to shrink, the walls closing in with the pressure of betrayal. His vision narrows to her, and the phone and the ring, the 3 points of a triangle that feels like a trap. He wants to believe her, to let her words soften the pain, but the image burned into his mind refuses to relent. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she says, tears forming in her eyes. "I didn't," but Jabir shakes his head, unable to listen, unable to process the half apologies and hesitant explanations. He feels the world tilt beneath him, the certainty of their love dissolving into doubt and disbelief. I need a minute," he says finally, voice breaking, each word a struggle. He turns, leaving the room, leaving her standing there with the ring glinting like a spotlight on. Everything he no longer understands. The hallway feels colder than it should, the carpet muffling his steps, yet every echo of his own movement feels amplified in the silence. He sits at the edge of the sofa in the living room, hands clasped tightly, fingers pressing into each other as if physical pain could anchor him to reality. He tries to breathe, to steady the pounding in his chest, but the image of her typing, laughing softly at some unseen joke, wearing his ring while her mind and heart are elsewhere, refuses to fade. The betrayal is not loud. It is subtle, insidious, creeping in through moments that once felt insignificant. He recalls their shared laughter, the small touches that had been routine, the whispered promises that had seemed eternal. And now all of it is tinged with doubt, each memory refracted through a lens of suspicion. A notification sound from her phone pierces the quiet. Jabir flinches. The sound is a dagger, cutting through the fragile remnants of trust. He knows she is still connected to someone else, still dividing attention in a way that should not be possible in a bond meant to be whole. He closes his eyes, gripping the edge of the sofa, as though it might keep him tethered to something real, something solid. The room blurs around him, the soft glow of the lamp, the faint hum of the city outside, the distant sound of traffic. They all become background to the thrum of his own heart, which refuses to settle. Minutes pass, though they feel like hours. Finally, he rises, moving slowly back toward the bedroom. The sight of her, standing there with the ring, the phone still in hand, is unbearable. Every step is weighted, each movement a battle between love and despair. "Jabir," she begins, voice trembling, eyes wide with the first real glimpse of fear he has seen. But he doesn't answer. He cannot. Words are useless now, insufficient to capture the torrent of emotion inside him. He slides past her, leaving the room once more, and the sound of the door closing behind him reverberates in the silence like a verdict. He walks to the balcony, stepping out into the cool night air. The city sprawls below, indifferent, lights twinkling like distant stars, mocking the chaos within his chest. He leans against the railing, staring at the expanse, trying to breathe, trying to make sense of what just happened. The ring she wears gleams faintly in the reflection from the balcony window, a symbol of love now intertwined with betrayal. He recalls the careful planning, the heartfelt proposal, the nights rehearsed in solitude. Every memory is tainted now, every dream clouded with uncertainty. And yet, despite the ache, a part of him still wants to reach out, to forgive, to believe that mistakes can be repaired. But the hesitation in her eyes, the secret held just beyond reach, whispers that this is no simple lapse, no fleeting distraction. The division he has felt growing over weeks has now crystallized into something undeniable. He remains there, on the balcony, chest tight, fingers grazing the cold metal of the railing. He wonders how someone so close can feel so distant, how love can coexist with deception, and how fragile the bridges of trust truly are. The night stretches on, silent except for the distant hum of the city. He knows he cannot face her right now. The weight of betrayal is too heavy. The apartment behind him, once a haven, now feels like a labyrinth of uncertainty, each room holding echoes of what he had believed and now questions. The apartment is quiet now, a silence so deep it feels almost oppressive. Jabir sits on the edge of the sofa, the cushions compressed beneath his weight, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. The ring she wears gleams faintly from the bedroom, a cold reminder of promises made and now tarnished. He stares at it, unable to look away, and in the reflection of the glass coffee table, he sees not just the ring, but the fractures in his heart mirrored back at him. He exhales slowly, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions threatening to consume him. Anger, disappointment, confusion, they swirl together in a storm too chaotic to name. He had loved her completely, trusted her implicitly, and yet the image of her texting, while wearing the symbol of their bond, has left him UNMORED memories rush in unbidden. The first time he held her hand, the way she laughed in the rain, the quiet evenings spent talking until the city around them fell asleep. Each memory is now tinged with doubt, as though the light of those moments has been filtered through the shadows of suspicion. He wants to cling to them, to believe that their love was real, that it is not lost entirely, but the weight of what he saw is pressing too heavily. He pushes himself to his feet and walks to the balcony. The cool night air brushes against his face, and he leans against the railing, staring at the city below. Lights shimmer like distant stars, indifferent to the turmoil in his chest. He feels like a man suspended between two worlds, the warmth of what he thought they had, and the cold reality of betrayal. Memories and questions collide in his mind. Why did she hide her attention from him? How long has it been like this? Is this a momentary lapse or a deeper disconnect he cannot yet comprehend? Every answer he tries to construct feels fragile, insubstantial, like smoke slipping through his fingers. He recalls the proposal, the careful planning, the way he had imagined their future together with certainty. And now, the certainty feels naive, almost cruel. He wonders if love is always so precarious, so easily undermined by the smallest acts of distraction or divided attention. Sitting back down, he allows himself to sink into the cushions, burying his face in his hands. The room smells faintly of her perfume, lingering like a ghost. He inhales it deeply and flinches, as if the scent itself is a reminder of what he has lost, or perhaps what he has not yet lost, but can no longer fully trust. He opens his phone, scrolling through old messages, old pictures. The laughter, the promises, the shared dreams, they feel distant now, almost unreal. And yet, he cannot let them go. He traces her name on the screen, fingertips hovering over the letters, as if touch alone could bridge the chasm that has opened between them. Jabir leans back, eyes closing, letting the memories wash over him. both tender and cruel. He remembers the nights spent in her arms, the whispered confessions, the gentle touches that once felt like home. And then he remembers the phone, the ring, the distance in her eyes, and the memories twist, reflecting not just love but loss, not just intimacy but betrayal. He rises again, pacing the small space of the apartment as if movement could shake free the weight in his chest. The walls seem to close in, echoing back the quiet questions that haunt him. Can love survive secrets? Can trust be rebuilt once it is fractured? Or has he been blinded all along, seeing only the light she allowed him to see? Hours pass, or perhaps only minutes. Time has become meaningless, each second stretched by the ache in his chest. He sits on the floor now, back against the couch, staring at the ring in the bedroom. The diamond glimmers in the dim light, beautiful yet unattainable, a symbol of devotion now intertwined with doubt. He remembers the first week of their engagement, the laughter, the planning, the dreams of a shared future. How easily it feels like a lie now, how fragile the happiness he once held in his hands. And yet, he cannot deny the part of him that still clings to hope, that whispers, perhaps she did not mean to hurt him, that love can be repaired if both hearts are willing. The thought is a fragile thread, a lifeline he grips desperately. But alongside it is the sharper, darker thread, the fear that he cannot forgive, that betrayal has taken root too deeply. He is torn between wanting to reach out, to understand, to salvage the bond he has cherished, and the need to protect himself, to retreat into solitude until the storm within him quiets. The city below continues its rhythm, indifferent to the turbulence above. The distant sounds of traffic, laughter, and music seep through the balcony doors, a reminder that life continues even when hearts falter. Jabir leans against the railing again, letting the cool night air seep into him, trying to breathe, to anchor himself in something real, something steady. He thinks of her, sitting somewhere in the bedroom, perhaps staring at her phone, perhaps wondering why he has withdrawn. He wonders what is going through her mind: guilt, frustration, confusion. And he realizes, with a sting, that no one knows these thoughts but her, and he may never fully understand the choices that led to this moment. Jabir sits in silence, letting the quiet stretch, absorbing the weight of his emotions. He knows he cannot force clarity or control feelings that refuse to settle. Love, he realizes, is not just about devotion or promises. It is also about navigating the uncertainties, the moments when hearts are tested, and choices define the path forward. He stands, moving back into the apartment, the ring glinting faintly from the bedroom. His chest feels heavy, but there is a clarity in the heaviness, a recognition that he must pause, must allow himself space to heal before making any decisions. To act in anger or despair would be to risk destroying what might still be worth saving. He pours himself a glass of water, hands trembling slightly, and drinks slowly, letting the cool liquid anchor him to the present. He knows he cannot remain in this limbo forever, but for now, pause is necessary. Hark on pause until clarity, courage, and perhaps forgiveness can emerge. Sitting on the couch again, he allows himself to sink into the solitude. The apartment is quiet, filled only with the hum of life outside. His mind drifts, recalling their love, their shared moments, the laughter, the tears, the tender touches. And he realizes that love has never been simple, never been predictable. Even in betrayal, even in heartbreak, it has been real messy, complicated, beautiful, and painfully human. He closes his eyes, imagining her face, the soft curve of her smile, the warmth of her presence. And beneath the ache of disappointment, a quiet ember remains hope, fragile but alive. It whispers that perhaps understanding can come, that perhaps hearts can reconcile, that perhaps love can survive even the most painful trials. But for tonight, the ember glows faintly, insufficient to dispel the shadows. Tonight, he will allow himself to feel, to breathe through the ache. And perhaps tomorrow, he will find the strength to confront the questions that have no easy answers. The apartment is bathed in the soft glow of the evening, the lights outside casting long, fragile shadows across the floor. Jabir sits at the edge of the couch, fingers intertwined, knuckles pale with the pressure of holding himself together. Across from him, she sits with her legs curled beneath her, eyes downcast, fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. The air is thick with unspoken words, tension vibrating like an electric current neither dares to release fully. Finally, Jabir exhales, breaking the oppressive silence. "We need to talk," he says softly, voice calm but weighted with everything left unsaid over the past hours, days, weeks. She looks up, eyes meeting his for a fleeting moment, and then quickly dropping again. "I know," she whispers, voice barely audible. Her lips pressed together, betraying the hesitation that has grown between them like ivy, winding around the walls of trust and intimacy. "Why didn't you tell me about him?" Jabir asks, carefully, though the question trembles with both anger and vulnerability. He leans forward, elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on hers, searching for the honesty he feels slipping through his fingers. She flinches, a subtle movement that betrays guilt, but her voice is steady. I didn't know how," she admits finally. "I thought I could handle it without making you worry. I didn't mean to hurt you, Jabir. I swear I didn't." Jabir closes his eyes, a deep ache pressing in his chest. "But it feels like you've been somewhere else all along, like part of you was never really here." His words cut through the air, sharp yet tinged with pain. "And I can't reconcile that with the woman I love." She bites her lip, glancing down at her hands. "I was scared," she admits quietly. "Scared that if I told you everything, you wouldn't understand. That you'd leave." He exhales sharply, the frustration and heartache coiling inside him like a spring about to snap. "I don't want perfection," he says, voice breaking slightly. "I want honesty. I want to feel like we're in this together. But I can't do that when your thoughts are elsewhere. When I feel you holding pieces of yourself from me." Tears glisten in her eyes now, but she quickly blinks them away. "I didn't mean to hold anything back," she says, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to balance it all. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't stop myself from seeking something else. I don't know why." The words hang between them, fragile and raw. Jabir wants to reach out, to touch her face, to reassure her, to anchor both of them in the reality of their love. But his own doubts, the memory of her texting with the ring on her finger, hold him back. He is torn between the desire to forgive and the fear of repeating this. "Heartbreak. I don't know if I can understand it," he admits finally, voice low, heavy with emotion. "I love you. I really do. But I feel like I'm losing you in ways I don't fully grasp." She lifts her gaze, and he finally sees the vulnerability, the fear, the complexity behind her eyes. "I don't want to lose you either," she whispers. I'm so sorry. I didn't expect to feel this way, to act this way. I never meant for it to hurt you, or for us to be like this." Jabir's chest tightens further, the mix of relief and pain leaving him suspended. Part of him wants to believe her, to reach across the space and close the distance with the touch of hands and the warmth of forgiveness. But another part of him hesitates, wary of the uncertainty, wary of the cracks in the foundation that he can no longer ignore. "You should have told me," he says finally, voice quiet but firm. "Even if it was hard, even if it scared you, I would have understood. I needed to know where I stood." She nods slowly, swallowing hard. I know that now. I didn't think of it that way. I was selfish. They sit in silence for a long moment, the weight of unspoken thoughts pressing against them. Each of them aware of the gap, the invisible tension that lingers despite their proximity. She reaches out tentatively, brushing her fingertips along the edge of his hand, and he flinches slightly, not out of anger, but from the fear that the bond between them has changed irreversibly. "I want to fix this," she says softly. "I want us to be okay. But I don't know if you can forgive me, not yet. And I don't know if I can make it right." He leans back, staring at her, the mix of love, longing, and hurt roiling inside him. "I don't know either," he admits. "I don't know if things can go back to the way they were. And I don't know if I can. Trust like I used to, not immediately." She looks down again, a small sigh escaping her lips. "I understand," she says quietly. I just hope we can get there someday." Jabir closes his eyes, letting the words sink in, their weight pressing against the fragile hope he still carries. He remembers the proposal, the dreams, the quiet moments of tenderness and laughter, and he knows that he does not want to lose her entirely. But the path forward is unclear, shrouded in uncertainty and emotional minefields that neither of them fully knows how to navigate. "I need time," he says finally, voice barely above a whisper. "Time to process, to think, to figure out what I want and need." She nods, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "I'll give you that," she says softly. "I'll wait. I love you, Jabir, even if it's hard to show sometimes." He nods, though his heart is heavy, and he retreats further into himself, curling into a quiet corner of the couch. She sits quietly nearby, giving him space, yet her presence is a constant reminder of the love they have, the mistakes made, and the questions left unresolved. The evening stretches on, filled with the quiet tension of unspoken emotions. Neither of them speaks again, but every glance, every subtle movement, carries the weight of longing, regret, and the tentative hope that reconciliation might still be possible. Outside, the city hums with life, oblivious to the fragile drama unfolding within the apartment. Lights flicker in distant windows, cars pass, laughter echoes from the street below, but inside, time seems to have slowed. They exist in a fragile bubble of emotion, caught between love and disappointment, desire and fear, connection and distance. Finally, she rises, moving toward the bedroom, leaving Jabir alone with his thoughts. He watches her go, the small curve of her shoulders, the sway of her hair, and he feels both love and heartbreak. He wants to reach out, to call her back, to mend what feels broken, but he also knows that rushing would be a betrayal to his own need for clarity. He leans back into the cushions, staring at the ceiling, the city lights casting patterns across the room. The echoes of their conversation, the rawness of her vulnerability, and the weight of his doubts intertwine, creating a tension that neither has resolved. And in that quiet, suspended moment, Jabir realizes that the hardest part of love is not the absence of happiness, but the presence of questions that cannot yet be answered, the spaces between hearts that demand patience, understanding, and courage. The rain begins softly, tapping against the apartment window like a hesitant percussion, a fragile rhythm to accompany the storm inside Jabir's heart. He sits cross-legged on the floor, shoulders slumped, staring at the faint glow of streetlights that glimmer through the droplets. Each flicker is a reminder of nights spent walking beneath the same lights, hands intertwined, hearts beating in sync. Now they feel distant, as though he is watching them from the wrong side of a glass wall. Memories rise unbidden. The first time she laughed at one of his clumsy jokes, the way her eyes sparkled as if the world existed only for them. The nights they spent talking quietly under the stars until the moon surrendered to dawn. He remembers the soft brush of her hand on his arm, the warmth of her shoulder against his, and the whispered promises that felt unbreakable. But those moments now sting. sharp and poignant, because the present is nothing like that. The intimacy, once effortless, has become elusive. The touch that used to bring comfort now feels weighted with absence. He reaches for her presence in the apartment, the scent of her perfume, the faint imprint of her body in the sheets, but she is not here. She is elsewhere, a ghost in his carefully constructed memories. And the ache of her absence presses down on him relentlessly. He moves to the window, tracing the raindrops with his fingers, as if he could reshape them into clarity. The city outside blurs in the rain, the lights melting together like watercolor tears. And he realizes how much he craves the simplicity of the past, the unshakable certainty of their love before cracks began to appear. Why did it change? He whispers, voice barely audible above the rain. Why did something so perfect become so fragile? He presses his forehead to the cool glass, feeling the chill seep into him, grounding him in the present, even as memories threaten to pull him under. The echo of her laughter, the warmth of her smile, the gentleness of her hands, they all clash violently with the image of her texting with the ring on her finger. The doubt that has taken root, and the distance that stretches between them. A tear escapes, trailing down his cheek unbidden. He doesn't wipe it away, letting it fall freely, a small admission of vulnerability. He leans back slightly, gazing out into the rain-streaked night, imagining her there with him, her hand resting lightly against his. He recalls their whispered confessions under starlit skies, the quiet promises made with hearts unguarded, and the contrast to the present moment leaves him raw. The room is silent except for the rhythmic tap of rain, the hum of the city, and the soft thrum of his own heartbeat. He closes his eyes, letting memories cascade over him in waves, alternating between sweetness and ache. He sees her sitting beside him on a park bench, sharing stories under the glow of lanterns. He sees her leaning against him in the quiet of the night, her hair falling softly over his shoulder. He sees the moment he slid the ring onto her finger for the first time, the anticipation in her eyes mirrored in his own. And then he sees the phone, the texts, the distance, the half-hearted laughter, and the illusion shatters. His chest tightens as if the past itself is mocking him, reminding him of everything lost, everything fragile, everything he cannot hold on to anymore. He sinks to the floor, hugging his knees, letting the sobs he has restrained until now escape. The grief is not just for betrayal, but for the love that feels simultaneously alive in memory and unattainable in reality. He wonders if she feels the same weight, if she even remembers the nights with the same intensity, or if they were already fragments to her, easily overlooked. Time passes in suspended moments, the rain continuing its gentle percussion, the city lights flickering through the droplets. Jabir remains at the window, allowing the raw ache to envelop him. He whispers her name, a fragile plea, a tether to what he hopes still exists, and yet the sound feels hollow, swallowed by the distance between them. He remembers their first argument, mild and almost insignificant at the time, and how it felt like a minor ripple in their ocean of love. Now he sees it as the first hint of the fractures he didn't know were forming. Every laugh that once felt genuine now carries uncertainty. Every touch that once brought comfort now carries tension. The past is a mirror, reflecting both beauty and loss, and he cannot look away. The storm outside intensifies slightly, rain lashing against the glass with a soft urgency, as though echoing the turmoil within him. He traces the patterns of raindrops, imagining they are tears of the past, falling for moments that cannot be reclaimed. He remembers the soft brush of her lips against his and the quiet of a shared night, the warmth of her hand seeking his in darkness, the whispered, "I love you," that felt eternal. A chill runs through him, both physical and emotional, as he realizes that those moments exist now only as memories, beautiful yet painfully out of reach. The present is an empty room filled with echoes, and he feels suspended between the love he once knew and the uncertainty that defines their current reality. He thinks of her now, alone somewhere in the apartment, perhaps replaying her own memories, perhaps unaware of the storm raging inside him. He wonders if she feels the same ache, the same longing, the same regret. And the thought, uncertain and fragile, brings a new layer of pain, the possibility that they are no longer walking the same path, that their memories are islands separated by invisible waters. Neither knows how to cross. Jabir leans his head against the window again, staring out into the dark, rain-soaked night. He allows himself to remember fully, to feel fully, to grieve fully. The sorrow, mingled with love, is overwhelming, yet necessary. It is a pause, a reckoning, a confrontation with the raw reality of both the past and the present. He whispers softly, almost to himself, "I wish things were the same. I wish we could go back." The words dissolve into the night, absorbed by the rain and the indifferent hum of the city. Yet in the quiet despair, a faint ember of hope persists, a stubborn, flickering light that refuses to extinguish entirely. The apartment remains silent, save for the rain, and Jabir remains by the window, letting the storm outside mirror the storm inside. Every memory, every laughter, every stolen kiss all echo in the room, all echo in his heart, leaving him simultaneously comforted and broken. He feels her presence in memory, in whispers of the past, in the phantom touch of hands that once knew each other intimately. And yet the present insists on its harsh truth. She is not fully there, and the distance between them stretches, unbridgeable for now. A tear slides down his cheek, catching the light from the street below. He allows it to fall freely, a silent acknowledgement of love, loss, and longing. The storm outside and the storm within him are one, and he knows that tonight he will grieve, remember, and ache alone, yet tethered to what once was. The afternoon sunlight streams unevenly through the blinds, cutting the apartment into stripes of light and shadow. Jabir sits at the edge of the sofa, restless, the lingering ache from the previous nights pressing against his ribs like a weight he cannot lift. He doesn't know how long he has been here, trapped between longing and suspicion, between love and disbelief. The doorbell rings, sharp and unexpected, and he flinches. He isn't expecting anyone. Heart hammering, he rises and walks toward the door, the small sound of his footsteps echoing in the tense quiet. When he opens it, she stands there, a nervous smile brushing her lips, eyes wide with a mixture of apprehension and longing. "Jabir." She begins softly, but the words falter, hanging between them like fragile glass. He steps aside wordlessly, letting her in, and she hesitates in the doorway, shifting from one foot to another. The air between them is heavy, charged with all the unresolved tension that has accumulated over weeks. She finally speaks, voice trembling. We need to talk." Before he can respond, a notification sound blares from her phone, lying in plain sight on the counter. Jabir freezes. The name that flashes on the screen is one he had feared. The same contact he had seen before, the one she had been texting when the ring first became a symbol of doubt. She notices his sudden stiffening. It's nothing," she tries to say quickly, but the word fails her, lost in the rising tension that neither of them can escape. "Nothing?" he asks, voice low but charged with suppressed anger. His eyes flick to the phone, then back to her. "Nothing? You're standing here with me, saying nothing happened, while your phone tells a different story." Her eyes widen, panic mixing with guilt, and she steps closer, trying to bridge the gap that has been widening for weeks. "Jabir, please." "It's not what you think," she pleads, but even her voice sounds uncertain, the tremor betraying her own confusion. Jabir's chest tightens, a storm of conflicting emotions swirling inside him. Anger flares, but so does longing. Betrayal sharpens every edge, yet hope stubborn and persistent flickers like a fragile candle in the dark. He struggles to breathe, to find a footing in the chaos of his emotions. "Then tell me," he demands finally, voice sharp yet quivering. "Tell me everything right now. No half-truths, no excuses." "I need the truth." She hesitates, swallowing hard, eyes darting toward the phone again. Her hands twist nervously, fingers entwined, nails biting into palms. It started as a mistake," she whispers, voice almost drowned by the intensity in his gaze. "I didn't know how to stop it, and I never meant for you to see, to feel betrayed. But it happened, Jabir. It happened, and I can't undo it." The words hit him like ice water, shocking and biting. Anger surges, sharp, jagged, unforgiving, but beneath it lies the ache of love, raw and exposed. "So it's true," he says, barely above a whisper. "All those nights, those texts, that attention. It wasn't just distraction. You were somewhere else." Tears form in her eyes as she reaches toward him. I know it looks horrible, but I didn't want to hurt you. I still love you, Jabir. I didn't mean for it to go this far." His heart thunders, the pulse in his ears, drowning out everything else. He wants to believe her, wants to reach out and hold her, to press his forehead against hers and let the hurt dissolve in the warmth of shared breath. Yet the betrayal is too sharp, too immediate. The memory of her fingers on her phone while wearing his ring, replaying like a relentless echo. "I don't know if I can forgive this," he admits, voice breaking. "I love you, but love isn't enough when trust is gone." Her shoulders slump, a mixture of despair and hope flickering across her face. "I'll do anything," she says desperately. "I'll prove it, But he holds up a hand, stopping her. The room feels suddenly vast, empty, as if the space between them has grown larger than the apartment itself. "I can't." "Not yet," he says, voice low and strained. "I need time. I need to understand if this is something we can survive, or if it's already over." The weight of his words hangs heavy, suffocating in its finality, yet threaded with hesitation, with the possibility of forgiveness. She nods slowly, tears spilling freely now, and retreats a step, giving him the space he demands, yet unwilling to leave entirely. The room falls silent again, broken only by the distant sounds of traffic outside and the faint tap of rain against the window. Jabir sinks into a chair, head in his hands, grappling with a turbulent mix of emotions that refuses to settle. Every memory, every promise, every stolen glance from the past courses through him, clashing violently with the raw reality of betrayal. And then, as if fate itself intervenes, a message notification from her phone blares loudly, startling both of them. Jabir freezes, eyes narrowing. She glances at the screen, face paling. It's not for me," she stammers, but the panic in her voice only amplifies his suspicion. He steps closer, gaze fixed on her trembling hands and the illuminated screen. The name on the display is hers, or rather, the conversation that unfolds shows a clarity she cannot hide. Confessions, emotions, secrets. He sees words meant for someone else, a world that doesn't include him. His chest tightens so sharply, he feels he cannot breathe. The anger is immediate, white-hot, but so is heartbreak, twisting every nerve. He looks at her, eyes wide and searching for some explanation that he knows may not exist. I can't," he whispers, the weight of love and betrayal pressing down. "I can't pretend this isn't happening. I can't." Her lips tremble, and she reaches out again, but he steps back, the invisible line drawn, separating hope from self-preservation. "Jabir, please." She pleads, "You have to listen to me." But he shakes his head, the sound final, cutting, yet fragile. I need to think. I need to decide who I am, and whether I can stand beside you without losing myself. The silence that follows is heavy, almost sacred. It is the pause before a choice, the tension between heart and mind, love and self-respect. Both stand frozen in the apartment, the distance between them now filled with questions that cannot yet be answered. Gabi moves to the balcony, letting the cool air wash over him, the city sprawling below like an endless expanse of possibilities and consequences. He stares at the lights, the rain, the reflection of his own conflicted emotions shimmering in the glass. She remains in the apartment, hands clasped, shoulders tense, heart aching. She watches him, longing and fear mingling, unsure if the man she loves will stay, or if this is the moment he turns away forever. The world outside continues, indifferent to the turbulence inside. And Jabir, standing at the crossroads of choice, feels the weight of the turning point, pressing against him, to fight for love, risking further heartbreak, or to step away and preserve the remnants of self-respect, leaving the door open only to memory. The storm outside mirrors the storm within him. He closes his eyes, the past and present colliding violently, and knows that whichever path he chooses, nothing will ever be the same. The apartment feels heavier today, as though the walls themselves understand the gravity of the moment. Jabir stands near the doorway, holding a small velvet box in his hands, the engagement ring inside catching the morning light. A diamond sparkles faintly, innocent and unknowing of the weight it carries. He runs his thumb along the edge of the box, feeling the smooth surface as if trying to ground himself before stepping into the room where she waits. He exhales, long and measured, summoning the courage he has spent days collecting from the remnants of heartbreak and reflection. Peace, not anger, guides him now. Clarity has arrived quietly, like the first light of dawn piercing a stormy night. He knows that holding on to the ring, clinging to what he thought was theirs, would be holding on to pain instead of releasing it. Her voice greets him softly as he steps in. Jabir. It carries warmth, tinged with vulnerability, but he doesn't answer immediately. He walks slowly toward her, each step deliberate, measured, a rhythm that mirrors the steadying of his racing heart. She notices the box in his hand, her eyes widening, and a subtle tremor runs through her. Is that? She asks, voice breaking slightly, filled with anticipation and fear. Jabir meets her gaze, seeing the fragility and hope that linger in her eyes. Yes, he says simply, his voice calm, resolute. It's yours, and yet, it's also mine to let go of. The words hang between them, heavy, saturated with emotion. She swallows hard, tears welling at the edges of her lashes. Jabir. He raises a hand gently, stopping her, not out of cruelty, but out of the necessity for the moment to unfold naturally. I'm not here to fight, or to punish, or to demand explanations, he says softly. I'm here to do what's right for both of us. To let go of the pain, even if it means letting go of each other, at least for now. He kneels slightly, offering the box to her, and the gesture carries both humility and strength. It is not a surrender of love, but a surrender of obsession, of control, of the desperate need to hold what cannot be held. She reaches out, fingers trembling, brushing against the edge of the box, and he feels the electric pull of the past, of shared moments that will always linger. I don't know what to say, she whispers, voice caught in the whirlwind of emotion that has been building for weeks. You don't need to say anything, he replies, eyes soft yet piercing. Just take it, and let it be a beginning, or an ending, depending on what we choose next. But I cannot carry this anymore, cannot let this ring symbolize anything other than truth. She opens the box slowly, the diamond inside catching the light like a fragment of memory frozen in time. She touches it lightly, as if it could absorb her remorse, her longing, her love, her mistakes. I'm sorry, Jabir, she whispers, barely audible. For everything. For the hurt, the secrets, the distance. I never want to betray you. He nods, absorbing her words, letting the apology settle between them like a fragile balm. I know, he says, voice steady, though his heart aches with the remnants of love and disappointment. I know you didn't intend to hurt me, but intention isn't enough when reality has already shifted. I've realized I need peace. I need to find myself before we try to find us again. The room is filled with quiet intensity. Every breath, every glance loaded with the history of their love, the ache of heartbreak, and the tentative spark of hope. She lifts the ring from the box, holding it between them like a fragile bridge, the past shimmering in its facets. Will you ever forgive me? She asks, voice quivering, eyes glistening with tears that mirror the diamond spark. Jab IR meets her gaze, seeing both remorse and sincerity. He takes a deep breath, letting the clarity he has fought to achieve settle in. I don't know, he admits honestly. Maybe someday. But forgiveness isn't something I can give while my heart is still raw. Right now, I need to let go to find peace within myself first. She nods, tears spilling freely now, cascading down her cheeks in quiet surrender. I understand, she says softly, a tremor in her voice revealing the gravity of the moment. I love you, Jabir. Even if we cannot be together now, or even if it's forever changed, I love you. He feels the weight of her words, the love they carry, mingling with the clarity of his own resolve. I love you too, he replies, voice barely above a whisper, carrying both grief and a quiet strength. That doesn't have to mean holding on. Sometimes love is knowing when to release, when to step back, when to let the other person live freely. For a moment, they remain in silence, the apartment suspended in time. The diamond glints in her hand, a symbol of both what was and what might still be. And yet, Jabir's heart feels lighter than it has in weeks. The ache remains, but it is tempered now with acceptance, with understanding, with a fragile form of liberation. He rises, stepping back, giving her space, yet maintaining a connection that does not demand possession. She sets the ring on the table gently, the clink of the box against wood sounding like finality and possibility at once. I will carry our memories, he says softly, but I will not carry the pain anymore. This is our turning point one way or another. Her shoulders tremble as she exhales, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and unspoken gratitude passing through her. Thank you, she whispers, barely audible, yet heavy with emotion. For choosing clarity, and for letting me keep some of myself too. Jabir nods, a small, sad smile touching his lips. We both need to breathe, to live, to heal. Perhaps the future will tell us if we meet again, or if we simply honor what we had and carry it quietly forward. The room feels both empty and full in that instant, a paradox of emotion that is both heartbreaking and liberating. The ring lies on the table between them, a jewel of memory and loss, glimmering as if acknowledging the gravity of choice, the weight of love, the power of letting go. He turns toward the door, pauses, and casts one last glance at her, seeing her vulnerability, her sincerity, and the remnants of the love that had defined them. Goodbye, he says softly, voice breaking just slightly, yet firm in its finality. She reaches toward him instinctively, hand trembling, but he does not take it. Their connection remains, silent and sacred, but unclaimed for now. Goodbye, Jabir, she whispers back, voice quivering, tears spilling freely. He steps out into the hallway, leaving the apartment behind, leaving the ring, leaving the past carefully placed on the table where it belongs. The door clicks softly behind him, a sound heavier than he could have imagined, yet freeing in its own way. Outside, the morning sun touches the city streets, the world continuing in its relentless rhythm. He breathes in the cool air, letting the clarity, the release, the empowerment seep into him. He knows the path ahead is uncertain, the future unwritten, yet he feels stronger than he has in weeks. He has chosen peace over possession, love over obsession, and in doing so, has reclaimed a part of himself he thought was lost forever. The city is quiet in the early morning, streets glimmering with dew and the soft reflection of the rising sun. Jabir walks along the familiar pavement, hands in his pockets, a light chill in the air that reminds him life continues, no matter the storm that has passed. The apartment behind him, the ring on the table, the memories of shared laughter and pain, all remain. But they no longer tether him. He pauses at a small park, the soft rustle of leaves underfoot soothing, grounding him. A bench near the fountain invites him to sit, and he takes it, allowing himself a deep breath that carries both release and acceptance. The air tastes of new beginnings and quiet resolve. For the first time in weeks, he feels a stillness within, a fragile equilibrium. The ache of loss lingers, but it is softened by clarity. He realizes now that love is not only about possession or constant closeness. It is about honesty, respect, and the courage to honor both oneself and the other. He recalls the final moments with her, the ring resting on the table, their words spoken in gentleness rather than fury. That act, which had felt like heartbreak then, now feels like liberation. Liberation for her, and liberation for him. The love that had shaped them will always exist, but it is no longer defined by the pain of betrayal or the tension of uncertainty. Jabir looks out at the fountain, water dancing in the sunlight, and allows himself a small, wistful smile. He remembers the nights they had spent here, the whispered promises, the hand-in-hand walks under starlit skies. Memories no longer wound him. They remind him of growth, of connection, of what it meant to feel deeply, fully, even if temporarily. His phone vibrates quietly in his pocket. He glances at it, expecting messages or distractions, but it is only a gentle reminder from a meditation app, a small nudge to breathe, to center himself. He smiles faintly, appreciating the simplicity. Life, he realizes, has moved forward, and he must do the same. Meanwhile, she sits in her apartment, the quiet heavy yet reflective. She gazes at the now empty ring box on the table, her fingers brushing over the velvet surface absent-mindedly. She has cried, apologized, and finally allowed herself to confront the truth she had tried to hide. The consequences of her choices rest on her shoulders, but the lessons they carry are invaluable. I should have trusted him, she murmurs to herself, voice trembling but soft. I should have been honest, fully honest. She exhales, a mix of regret and resolve, and leans back against the wall. The pain of what has passed is sharp, but beneath it lies understanding, a realization of the complexity of love and the fragility of trust. Outside, the city hums with life cars passing, birds calling, people moving through their own worlds. Inside, both of them sit separately, bound by memory, but unbound by circumstance, processing, growing, and learning to navigate the quiet aftermath of love and heartbreak. Jabir rises from the bench, shoulders squared, and begins walking again. Each step feels lighter than the last, a physical manifestation of the clarity he has gained. He passes familiar shops and streets, noticing small details he had overlooked before: the laughter of children, the smell of fresh bread, the gentle sway of trees in the breeze. Life is still vibrant, still moving, and he is part of it once more. He recalls moments of anger, doubt, and pain, the nights of tears, the confrontations, the silent arguments, but instead of bitterness, he feels gratitude. Gratitude for the depth of connection he experienced, for the lessons learned, for the strength uncovered within himself. Love, even when it fails to remain intact, has shaped him into someone more whole, more aware, more present. In a quiet cafe, he sits with a cup of steaming tea, the aroma grounding him. He watches the world pass outside the window, noticing strangers, smiles exchanged, gestures of kindness that remind him of the beauty in everyday moments. There is peace here, subtle yet profound. He sips the tea, savoring warmth, reflection, and the calm resolve that he has earned. Across the city, she writes in her journal, hands steady, mind focused. Words spill onto the pages, a cathartic release of emotion, an acknowledgement of mistakes. She writes of love, of mistakes, of the courage it takes to face one's own truth. Tears fall occasionally, but they are softened by understanding, by acceptance, by the small but vital realization that growth comes from confronting pain, not avoiding it. She pauses, pen hovering over the page, and smiles faintly. Life is not about perfect relationships or unbroken hearts. It is about learning, adapting, and carrying forward the essence of love without letting it diminish oneself. Jabir and she exist separately now, each walking their own paths, yet connected invisibly through memory and shared experience. Their bond remains, though altered, reshaped by honesty, loss, and the clarity of self. Both have learned that love is not only about possession or validation. It is about respect, integrity, and the courage to release when necessary. Evening descends slowly, painting the sky in shades of amber and lavender. Jabir stands at a quiet overlook, watching the city glow with the last light of day. He feels the soft tug of reflection, remembering her smile, their laughter, the ring he returned. There is no rage, no bitterness, only a bittersweet tenderness, a quiet acknowledgement of love's impermanence and the strength it leaves behind. A cool breeze brushes past him, carrying the scent of distant flowers and rain-soaked streets. He closes his eyes and breathes deeply, savoring the serenity he has fought to reclaim. Pain, memory, and growth intertwine, leaving a profound sense of equilibrium. At the same time, she stands by her own window, watching the same sunset from afar, her fingers brushing against the now empty ring box. She inhales deeply, letting go of regret, and allowing herself to accept both the love she once held and the lessons she must carry forward. In the quiet, both of them recognize a simple truth: love, even when it leaves behind wisdom, compassion, and the capacity to cherish oneself. Their paths may diverge, yet the essence of what they shared will remain, quietly shaping their hearts, subtly guiding their choices, and lingering in memory with grace rather than bitterness. Jabir opens his eyes, sunlight fading into twilight, and allows a small, gentle smile to touch his lips. Life has not ended, it has transformed. He is whole in a new way, carrying both the lessons of love and the liberation of self-awareness. The quiet aftermath is not empty. It is alive with reflection, growth, and the promise of tomorrow.